different amounts of time to write. So, although there were at least 3 books came out this year, 2 of them were written. One of them took over a year to write. One of them took about 6 months and sort of slightly overlapped. But then we got the go-ahead for the 4th Science of Discworld book with Terry Pratchett.
Yeah, I
that
haven't
had
read
to
that.
fit into Terry Pratchett's schedule. So Jack Cohen and I had very little choice. If we wanted to do the book, we had to do it in a very specific time period. So I squeezed that one in. It's much too much fun not to. Anyway, we've been hoping that Terry would let us do another one for quite a long time. We planned it
Do
out
graduate
ages
students
ago.
help him with this?
So, I think it goes along with the writing territory. If you're going to write this kind of thing, then sometimes the writing schedule gets a bit compressed.
And it's mostly you and, like, what other co-authors there might be, right? Like
I find co-authors help because they do some of the work. I have friends who find co-authors don't work for them because they spend all their time arguing with them.
I suppose it depends on the type of person.
It depends on the person. I pick my co-authors. If you've got the right co-authors and if you're prepared to compromise a bit, it can speed up the whole process. It makes it a lot more fun. And I find that when I'm working with somebody else, ideas turn up which neither of us would have thought of on our own.
Right.
Yeah? It's almost as if there's a third person in the room.
Does it get graduate students?
And things come up in discussions, and one of us will ask a silly question, and the other one will take it seriously, and suddenly a little light bulb will go off in the head and say, "Hang on, that's not a bad idea. We could probably do that." That helps. It means the actual number of words per year that I write is a bit shorter than it appears to be. But I do write a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
I enjoy doing it. It's fun. I'm still doing proper mathematical research, serious research, at about the same rate I always did. I've retired now, but I'm in my office at the university at this moment, despite having retired. It's just they're not paying me anymore.
I heard you're on Joy of Mathematics podcast. It's an episode of Ideas Roadshow, I think. So you were talking about animal gates and coupled oscillators. I remember reading a bit of that in your books. So, like, are you still working on that? And, like, also, are you...
See, the most recent piece of... your picture's breaking up a bit, and so is the sound. But if you can still hear me, that's fine. I'm not sure what's happening to the connection at the moment. The latest research paper I've just sent in is going back to the animal gates again. It happened in a rather strange way. I work a lot in research with Marty Golubinsky. He's an American mathematician in Columbus, Ohio. And Marty was... He now directs the Mathematical Biosciences Institute. He's got interested in mathematical biology. And he's been working on visual illusions, how the image processing in the brain reacts when presented with an image which can be interpreted in several different ways.
You touched on that on the podcast.
Yeah. And what I realised was that I could use the same kind of mathematics to go back to the animal locomotion work and revisit the whole thing.
The same math as in the...
I tried this just because it seemed... I thought this might be interesting. And when I started to actually work out what was involved, it was a lot more interesting than I expected. And a whole pile of new ideas emerged from it, some of which can be transported back to the illusions. So the different interests are kind of interacting with each other.
Right, so you don't get ideas just on working on one thing alone then?
I've never been able to work on one thing alone. I like to have several things going, all, not exactly at the same time, but when I get stuck on one problem, I can think about something else.
Right.
And I think that's always, if you spend too much time at any level of mathematics, being stuck on a problem and not knowing what to do and just staring at the problem, you end up trying the same sort of things over and over again and it doesn't work. If you go away and do something else, I think the brain is still thinking about this, but it's got more freedom when you're not focused on the problem. And sometimes ideas will come to you, but also sometimes you will get ideas from the other things you're doing. Yeah. So that's what that's what works for me.
And I suppose the theme of...
I should say so straight away. Some people prefer to just focus in on a specific problem and really, just think very hard about it.
And that's kind of the theme of modern math, right? Everything's connected, even to things that don't seem to be connected at all.
That's right. It's all too easy to get the impression that there are lots of different areas in math and they're all separate. There's algebra, there's geometry, there's trigonometry, there's calculus, and so on. But actually, they're all connected together. And the higher you go, the further you go in the subject. In fact, it's those connections that are the most important thing. The really new ideas come from people who make new connections.
Right, like Fermat's theorem.
Yeah. So, that's it. Yeah.
So, if you could give me one piece of advice, what would it be? Spelt I would throw that in there.
Okay, it sounds like you don't need advice. It sounds to me like you're doing it right.
Well, thank you.
I think you should, all the while you're enjoying what you're doing it right. Now, it's not that everything you do is enjoyable. Sometimes when you're learning new math or working on a problem, you come across something where you think, oh, I wish I didn't have to do this. I don't like this sort of stuff. Yeah. And then you think, I'm just going to have to do this because I think this is related to what I'm interested in. Some people, trying to decide on what career to follow or something, people will do things because it's what their dad did or what their mom did. And people become a doctor because dad was a doctor, or a lawyer or something like this. Or they'll do it because they know it's very well paid, or they'll do it because at the moment it's something you can get a job in. Those things do have some influence on what you do, but really you should be your own person.
Right.
You should do what you want to do. I don't know if your mum and dad will agree with this or be horrified by this.